Jai Guruji. Anandam Shukrana Guruji for blessing us with this divine seva of reading as well as listening to the Shivpuran. Let's begin with the synopsis for last week. Last week we read chapter 36 and 37 of Rudra Samhita section 5. In this we read that Lord Shiva told the emissary of Shankachura to convey to Shankachur that he should not hold any malicious feelings towards the gods, as he is not a Danava and he only became one or demon, because he became one because of the curse of Radha, and that he must return the kingdom of gods and stay in his own kingdom. Now listening to that, the emissary asked Lord Shiva that why were the demons subjected to fall due to the acts of gods, always citing various examples. To this Lord Shiva told the emissary that it was due to the request of gods, and even today he had come to fulfill the task of gods. And hearing this, the emissary stood up and went back to Shankachura and gave the truthful detail of Shiva's reply, and Shankachura lovingly accepted the decision that Lord Shiva had given and started preparing for a war. He gave instructions to his general and his army to prepare for a war with Lord Shiva. Likewise, Lord Shiva also gave instructions to his army as well as gods to prepare for a battle with Shankachura. Now after this there was a fierce and tumultuous battle between the gods and the Danavas, and both the sides fought a righteous battle. And unfortunately the gods were defeated and they were poorly beaten up by the Danavas, and they fled from the battlefield and they went back to Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva was infuriated and he tried to reassure and console them, and he also with his brilliance enhanced the strength of his Ganas, and then he instructed Kartikeya as well as Kali to go to the battlefield to fight the Danavas. Now once again the battle started, and as Kartikeya and Kali entered the battlefield, there was havoc all over, and crores of Danavas were killed because of them. And seeing all this, Shankachura was infuriated and he himself entered the battlefield, and when he did, he showered volley of arrows at all the gods, including Kartikeya. Now as there was this fierce battle going on between Kartikeya and Shankachura, Shankachura took out a spear which was gifted to him by Lord Brahma and attacked Kartikeya with it. Now Kartikeya knew that it was a gift from Lord Brahma, and he did not want to insult that, and he did not want the weapon to be futile, so he did not retaliate. As a result of it, when the spear hit Kartikeya, he fell on the ground. Now Kali took Kartikeya in her lap and went back to Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva enlivened Kartikeya and gave him immense strength. Now he was eager to go back to the battlefield, and at his request Kali also went back to the battlefield. In the meantime, Veerabhadra was also fighting the battle with Shankachura with great power and strength, and the fight continued between the Danavas or demons as well as the gods. Today we will read further what happened in this fight. We will be reading chapter 38, which is Kali fights, and chapter 39, the annihilation of the army of Shankachura. We only have English reading today, and the English reading will be done by Anil Gunjal uncle. Jai Guruji, enjoy the readings.
Jai Guruji. Thank you, Guruji, for this seva, and please forgive me for any mispronunciation. Chapter 38, Kali fights. Going to the battleground, the goddess Kali roared like a lion. On hearing that the Danavas fainted, she laughed boisterously again and again, boding ill to the Asuras. She drank the distilled grape wine and danced on the battleground. The manifestations of Durga, viz. Urgramastra, one with the fierce fangs, and Urgranda, the one with the fierce baton, and Kotavi, the naked, danced on the battleground and drank wine. There was great tumult on the side of the Ganas and the gods. All the gods and the Ganas roared and rejoiced. On seeing Kali, Shankachura hastened to the battleground. The Danavas were frightened, but the king Shankachura assured them of protection. Kali hurled fire as fierce as the flames of dissolution, which the king put out supportively by the means of Vyanas missiles. Immediately the goddess hurled the Narayana missile at him. The missiles developed its power on seeing the Danav Shankachura. On realizing it's as fierce as the flame of the fire of dissolution, the Danva Shankachura fell flat on the ground and bowed again and again. On seeing the Danvas humbled, the missile turned away. Then the goddess hurled the Brahma missile with due invocation through the mantra. On seeing the missile blazing, he bowed and fell on the ground. The leader of the Danvas thus prevented the Brahma missile from attacking him. Then the infuriated leader of the Danvas drew the bow violently and discharged divine missiles at the goddess with due invocation through the mantras. Opening the mouth very wide, she swallowed the missiles and roared with boisterous laugh. The Danvas were terrified. He then hurled a Shakti, 100 Yogana's laws at Kali. By means of divine missiles, she broke it into 100 pieces. He hurled the Vinvasa's missile at Kali. She blocked it with the Mahavesra missile. Thus the mutual combat went on for a long time. All the gods and Danvas stood as mere onlookers. Then the infuriated goddess Kali, as fierce as the god of death on the battleground, took up angrily the arrow sanctified by the mantras. In order to prevent it from being hurled, an unembodied celestial voice said, "O goddess, do not hurl this missile angrily at Sankachura. O candid death of this Danvas will not take place even though the never-failing Pashputa missile. Think of some other means for slaying this warrior Shankarchandra." On hearing this, Badakalari did not hurl the missile. Supportive, she devoured 10 million Danvas as if in hunger. The terrible goddess rushed at Shankachura to devour him. The Danvas prevented her by means of the divine missile of Rudra. Then the infuriated leader of the Danavas hurled a sword as fierce as the summer sun with sharp and terrific edge. On seeing the blazing sword approaching, Kali fiercely opened her mouth and swallowed it even as Sankachura stood watching. The Lord of Danvas hurled many divine missiles, but before they reached her, she broke them in hundreds of pieces. Again, the great goddess rushed at him in order to devour him, but the glorious Danva, leader of all Siddhas, vanished from sight. Thus, unable to see him, Kali, who rushed with great velocity, crushed his chariot and killed the charioteer with her fist. Then Sankachura, an expert in using deception, returned quickly and forcefully, hurled the wheel blazing like the flame of dissolution at Badakalali. The goddess supportively caught hold of the wheel with her left hand and immediately swallowed it. The goddess then hit him with her fist forcefully and angrily. The king of the Danvas whirled around and fainted for a short while. Immediately the Danva gained consciousness and got up victoriously. He did not fight her with his arms, but by the thought that she was a woman like his mother. The goddess seized the Danava, swirled him again, and tossed him up with great anger and velocity. The valorous Shankaracharya fell down and being tossed up very high. He got up and bowed down to Badkali. Highly delighted thereafter, he got into a beautiful aerial chariot of exquisite workmanship set with gems and did not lose the balance of his mind in the battlefield. Hungrily, Kali drank the blood of Danvas. In the meantime, an unembedded celestial voice said, "O goddess, 100,000 hauntedly leading Danvas have left out in the battle still rolling. Devour them quickly. Do not think of slaying the king of Danvas, O goddess. Sankachura cannot be killed by you, it is certain." On hearing these words from the firmament, Badakali drank the blood and devoured the flesh of many Danvas and went near Shiva. She then narrated to him the events of the war in proper order. Chapter 39. Vyasa said, "O intelligent one, on hearing the narrative of Kali, what did Shiva say? What did he do? Please narrate to me, I am eager to know." Santa Kumara said, on hearing the words of Kali, Lord Shiva, the actor of great divine sports, laughed. Shiva consoled her. On hearing the celestial voice, Shiva, an expert in the knowledge of principles, went himself to the battle along with his Ganas. He was seated on his great bull and surrounded by Vibhapa and others, and the celestials all equal in valor to him. Assuming a heroic form, Lord Shiva entered the battleground, where Shiva shone well as an embodied form of an annihilator. On seeing Shiva, Shankachura got down from the aerial chariots below, bowed with great devotion, and fell flat on the ground. After bowing to him, he immediately got into his chariot. He speedily prepared for the fight and seized the bow and arrows. The fight between Shiva and Danava went on for 100 years, and they showered arrows fiercely like clouds pouring down incessantly. The heroic Shankachura discharged terrible arrows playfully. Shiva split all of them by means of his arrows. Madhura, the odd-eyed Shiva, the punisher of the wicked and goal of the god, angrily hit his limbs with various weapons. Taking up his sharp sword and the leather shield, the Danvas rushed to the sacred bull of Shiva and hit it on its head. When his bull was hit, Shiva supportedly cut off the sword and shining shield by means of his Grusprana. When the shield was split, the Asuras hurled his spear. Shiva split into two and his arrows as it came down to him. The infuriated Danavas, Shankachura, hurled a discus. Immediately Shiva smashed it into pieces with his fist. He hurled his club with force at Shiva. Rapidly split by Shiva, the club was reduced to ashes. Then seizing an axe with his hand, an infuriated king of Danvas, Shankachura rushed at Shiva. By the volley of his arrows, Shiva sportively struck the Asura with axe in his hand. The Danava quickly regained consciousness and got into his excellent chariot. With divine weapons and arrows, he encompassed the whole sky and shone. On seeing him coming on, Shiva sounded his damaru ecstatically and twanged the bowstrings, the noise whereof was unbearable. The Lord filled all the quarters with the sounds of his horn. Shiva himself roared, then frightened the Asuras. The Lord Bull then bellowed, putting the haughty, trumpeting elephants to shame. The deep roar filled the sky, the earth, and the eight quarters. With his hands, the fierce Lord Shiva clapped the earth and sky. All the previous shouts and roars were surpassed by that sound. The Sesrapala produced a boisterous laughing sound, boding ill to all the Asuras. It was a great battle, Bhareva too roared. There was a terrific tumult in the midst of the battle. All around amongst the Ganas, the shouts of heroes rose up. The Danavas were frightened by those harsh and terrible sounds. On hearing them, the powerful king of Danavas came very furious. When Shiva shouted, "O wicked ones, stay by, the gods and the Ganas rapidly shouted, "Victory, victory." Then coming again, the valorous son of Damaba hurled at Rudra his spear, terrible with shooting flames. While it came on, blazing brilliantly like a great conflagration in the battleground, it was immediately suppressed by Kastrapala by means of meteor springing from his mouth. Again the great battle between Shiva and Danvas was resumed. The heaven and the earth, including all mountains, oceans, and rivers, shook and trembled. Shiva split up the arrows discharged by the son of Damba by means of hundreds and thousands of his fierce arrows. Similarly, the arrows of Shiva were split up by the Danava. Then infuriated, Shiva hit him with his trident. Unable to bear that blow, he fell unconscious to the ground. The Asura gained consciousness rapidly. He seized his bow and hit Rudra and all the others by means of his arrows. The valorous Sankachura assumed 10,000 arms by means of magic and rapidly enveloped Shiva by means of 10,000 discuses. Then Shiva, the infuriated consort of Durga, the destroyer of the immountable distress, split the discussion rapidly by means of his excellent arrows. Then the Danavas seized his mace and, accompanied by a huge army, rushed at Shiva with the intention to kill him. The infuriated Shiva, the destroyer of pride of the wicked, split the mace of the Danava, rushing headlong by means of a sharp-edged sword. When the mace was split, the Danava became very furious. The brilliant Danava took up a spear that blazed unbearable to the enemies. By the means of his trident, Shiva hit the comely king of Danavas rapidly in the chest, even as he approached with a spear in his hand. From the chest of Shankachura, pierced by the trident, a valorous, huge being came out and said, "Stand by, stand by." Laughing noisily, Shiva severed the terrible head of that being that was coming out by means of a sword. He fell on the ground. Then, spreading her mouth wide open, Kali fiercely devoured innumerable Asuras whose heads were crushed by her fierce fangs. The excited and infuriated Kalashpara devoured many more Dyatas. Some were killed, struck down by Bhairava's missiles, others were wounded. Virabharada furiously destroyed many other heroes. Nidasvara killed many other demons. Thus the other Ganas readily prepared and furiously heroic destroyed many Dyatas, Asuras, and suppressors of the god. Thus a majority portion of his army was destroyed there. Many other soldiers, cowardly and terrified, fled. That concludes the English reading. Jai Guruji.